Good morning, friends and respected ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and I am very happy that you are watching my videos. There is so much greatness on you and I am much obliged to you because you are watching my videos and observing my way of pronouncing and maintaining sequence. I am trying to acquire the skill of narration by regular practice and I am much indebted to you for your suggestions. As you already know, practice only makes a man perfect. For a teacher, I think especially to English teacher, a lot of practice is needed. And moreover, mistakes are unavoidable in a foreign tongue. If we consider mistakes seriously, we stop our learning. Mistakes are the stepping stones to our success. Two types of mistakes generally we commit in our speeches. The first one is regarding to the pronunciation and the other one is grammatical. If we try to rectify our pronunciation mistakes, the first thing we have to keep in our mind is that we are following neither of the US nor of the UK pronunciation, but we are following the Indian English pronunciation. Indian English pronunciation is unique in its rhythm and style. We pronounce every word clear and audible as we generally do in our mother tongue. Swallowing some words in a sentence is not our culture. But if you observe the US pronunciation, 60 to 70% of the words in a sentence are to be swallowed. Generally, they never pronounce the unimportant words like the helping verbs, articles, and prepositions. They respect the silent letters and they never dare to pronounce them. For example, if you observe this sentence, there is a cat under a tree and it is trying to jump upon a rat. The US pronunciation it should be, there is a cat under a tree and it is trying to jump upon a rat. The words cat, jump, rat were pronounced clearly and the remaining words were swallowed to maximum extent. If you observe this sentence in a UK pronunciation, there is a cat under a tree and it is trying to jump upon a rat. The words like cat, tree, trying to jump, rat were pronounced clearly and the remaining words were swallowed. Generally, their pronunciation is like jumping pronunciation. There is a cat under a tree and trying to jump a rat. Just like our cat is jumping on the rat. But in the Indian English pronunciation, we pronounce every word clearly. The other important area generally we commit the mistakes is the grammar. We the Indians sometimes may violate the traffic rules, but we strictly follow the grammatical rules. Whereas in the US or the UK, they strictly follow the traffic rules, but they sometimes violate the grammatical rules. Sometimes we may violate the articles in our constitution, but we never violate the articles in the grammar. Whether he is rich or poor, whatever may be his position, his prepositions in English would be clear and appropriate. We are trying to learn the life of the Mahatma. Thus Gandhi completed his 3 years in South Africa. In 1896, he asked the permission of Dada Abdullah and company to go home for 6 months. There the people in South Africa felt the need of his presence. So he made up his mind to go home and fetch his wife and children to settle in South Africa. The charge of the Natal Indian Congress and the Education Society was taken by Adamji Miakan and Parsi Rustomji. Among the middle of 1896, he sailed for India on the ship named SS Pongala. This time there were very few passengers on the ship. Among them were 2 English officers with whom he came in close contact. He used to play chess 1 hour daily with one of them. The ship's doctor gave him the book, The Tamil Self-Teacher, to learn. His experiences in Natal showed him the importance of learning Tamil. He wanted to acquire the knowledge of Urdu to get in close contact with the Muslims. The Tamil Self-Teacher was a well-written book with good functional Tamil, though he never learnt to speak Tamil. He felt as handicapped in speaking Tamil or Telugu. To some extent, he made progress in Tamil, but in Telugu, he did not learn beyond the alphabet. That was a pleasant journey of 24 days in the ship SS Pongala. The ship reached the river Hooghly in Calcutta. He landed at Calcutta and the same day he took the train for Bombay. On his way to Bombay, the train stopped at Allahabad for 45 minutes. He decided to utilize the interval for a drive to the town. After giving information to the station master, he went out to purchase some medicines at the chemist shop. When he reached the station, the train had just started. The station master kindly detained the train for 1 minute, but not seeing him coming, he raised the green flag and the train went away. Gandhi's luggage was taken out of the train. During that day, he spent in a private lodge. He heard that the Pioneer was published from Allahabad. Mr. Chesney was the editor of the Pioneer at that time. He met Mr. Chesney and told him about his missing train. They discussed about the writings in the newspapers. The rest of the day he went to see the magnificent confluence of three rivers, the Triveni. On the next day he took the train and went straight to Rajkot. There in Rajkot, he was very busy in the first month writing pamphlets on the situation of the Indians in South Africa. He prepared 10,000 copies of pamphlets and distributed to the people and the newspapers. The Pioneer published this pamphlet in its editorial column. The summary of the pamphlet was cabled to the writer in England. The plague broke out in Bombay at that time, and there was a panic all around. As today, COVID broke out, then the plague was a dangerous pandemic. The plague was broke out in Bombay because of unhygienic conditions. The sanitation department was alarmed the people. There was a fear of outbreak of plague in Rajkot also. Gandhi felt the need of sanitation in localities in Rajkot. He decided to help the sanitation department. He offered his services to the state and the state accepted it. They formed a committee and invited local elders and discussed the clean hygienic conditions in localities. Gandhi laid special emphasis on cleanliness of latrines. The poor people had no latrines, they had to perform their functions outside. When they went to inspect the upper class people, some of them even refused the admission. The latrines of the rich were more unclean. Lot of them were dark, stinking and reeking with filth and worms. The committee inspected the untouchable colonies also. Several of the committee members were refused to visit the untouchable colonies. Gandhi and some members went to the untouchable quarters. That was the first visit of Gandhi to untouchable colonies in his life. The men and women were surprised to see Gandhi at untouchable quarters. He asked them to inspect their latrines. Latrines for us, they exclaimed. We go and perform our functions out in the open, they said. Well, said Gandhi. Won't you mind if we inspect your houses? You are perfectly welcome, sir. You may inspect very nook and corner of our houses, they said. He went into the houses and was very delighted to see the insides were very clean as the outside. The entrances were well swept. The floor were beautifully smeared with cow dung, and few pots and pans were clean and shining. There was no fear of outbreak of plague in the untouchable colonies. The committee visited the Vaishnava temple. The surroundings of the temple were unclean and dirty, everywhere with refuses and leaf plates that devotees used as their dinner plates. There was a haunt of crows and kites. Nowadays, we are suffering with the outbreak of COVID-19. But 100 years ago, they suffered the outbreak of plague and several people were died. The unclean surroundings of the Vaishnava temple pained Gandhi because it was a place of worship. One would expect a careful observance of the rules of the sanitation department in a place which was regarded as holy. Gandhi participated in public meetings in Bombay, Pune, and Madras. He started his return journey to South Africa. This time he took his wife and children with him. The ship started to Natal without sailing the intermediate ports. The voyage took only 18 days. While the ship was 4 days to go to Natal, a terrible gale overtook them. The gale was violent and prolonged. The passengers were alarmed. All became one in face of a common danger. They forgot their differences and began to think of the one and the common God. Muslims, Hindus, and Christians. The captain also joined them and said that he had had many experiences of the storms. He explained them that this ship was well built and could stand almost any danger. The ship rocked and rolled to some extent, and it seemed as though it would be capsized at any moment. After 4 days, the sky cleared, the sun appeared, and the captain said that the storm had been blown over. The passenger faces were beamed with gladness, and with the disappearance of the danger also disappeared name of God in them. Eating and drinking, singing and merrymaking were the order of the day. The fear of the death was gone in them. As the fear of death was gone, the ship reached the Durban port. No passenger was allowed to land at any of the ports in South Africa. They were subject to thorough medical examination. You already know plague was broke out in India and several people died because of this pandemic. They had to go under quarantine for 24 days. As the ship started from Bombay, 18 days was completed. The remaining 5 days they had to undergo quarantine. Yellow flag was raised on the ship to complete its quarantine period of remaining 5 days. After 5 days, the doctors came into the ship and certified that the passengers were healthy. And finally, after 24 days, the passengers were landed on the Durban port. Meanwhile, the English people came in groups to the port and doing agitation, not to give permission to Indians to enter into South Africa because the deadly disease, plague. The English people thought that the disease would be spread in South Africa because of these Indians. And moreover, Gandhi is forming organization in South Africa against the British. The English people gathered in groups and raised slogans. Go back Indians, go back Indians, go back Indians. They are raising slogans like that. If you don't go, you will surely be pushed in the sea. They are yelling like that, and the crowd and the mob was in the port. The lives of the passengers were in danger. By bringing his family with him, he put the lives of his family members in jeopardy. No one said a word while he was in India about the whites in Natal and the incident related to plague disease. Gandhi was absolutely innocent about this. The white people thought that Gandhi was bringing these Indians to South Africa and he was the leader to them. The agitation was turned into violence. All the ships in the sea were thoroughly had medical checkup and brought into the dock, and the passengers were begun to go ashore. The white people were highly enraged against Gandhi, and his life was in danger. They were ready to beat Gandhi. So the captain and other people advised Gandhi to land at evening. They all suggested Gandhi to leave the port in the night and reach Mr. Rustomji's house. Gandhi did not like to leave the port in the night as a thief. As soon as they were landed, some youngsters recognized Gandhi and began to shout, Gandhi, Gandhi, like that. He did not feel the fear of anyone hurting him. Everyone was quiet and the white people were dispersed. His wife and children began to walk to Rustomji's house. With the captain's permission, he went ashore. Mr. Rustomji's house was about 2 miles away from the port. As soon as they were landed, some youngsters recognized Gandhi and began to shout, Gandhi, 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 like that. About half a dozen men rushed to the spot and joined in shouting. Mr. Lawton, a friend to Gandhi, advised him to go in a rickshaw. But Gandhi did not like the idea of going in a rickshaw. The rickshaw boy came to pick up Gandhi, but the mob shouted and the boy ran away. About half a dozen men reached the spot and joined in shouting. Mr. Lawton, a friend to Gandhi, advised him to go in a rickshaw. But Gandhi never liked the idea of being in a rickshaw. The rickshaw boy came to pick up Gandhi, but the mob shouted and the boy ran away. When he and his family was walking, the crowd swelled and it was impossible to proceed further. The mob was very violent and began to pelt stones, bricks and rotten eggs on Gandhi. Someone snatched away his turban and began to beat him and kick him. He was fainted and caught hold of the front railings of a house and stood there to take breath. The mob came upon him and began boxing and beating. The wife of the police superintendent happened to passing by. The brave lady came and stood between the mob and Gandhi. It was difficult to the mob to deliver blows on Gandhi because of this lady. Meanwhile, an Indian youth witnessed the incident had run to the police station. The police superintendent sent escort to Gandhi safely to his destination. The police superintendent asked Gandhi to take shelter in the police station. With escort, Gandhi arrived at Rustomji's house. There was quiet inside, but outside, white people surrounded the house. Night was coming on and the yelling crowd was shouting, "We must have Gandhi! We must have Gandhi!" The quick-sighted police superintendent was already there. He asked Gandhi to escape from the house to save life and property of the house. Gandhi escaped from the house in disguise in an Indian constable uniform and wore on his head a Madrasi scarf. 2 detectives accompanied him, one of them disguised as an Indian merchant and with his face painted to resemble as an Indian merchant. They reached a neighboring shop by lane. Friends, teaching is my profession and I am trying to better myself in this way. And the Mahatma's life giving me confidence to learn. This is the life of the Mahatma. It is wonderful. This is the life of the Mahatma.
I dreamt with you and I got nothing left to lose.
It is the life
Dancing
of the
around, I
Mahatma.
haven't found a way to wait beside you. Your night is my night, I know it just won't be the same without you. The night is young and I'm having fun, so I'm dancing with myself tonight.
Something, we will have something. This is the life of the Mahatma. It is the life of the Mahatma.
of the Mahatma. It is the life of the Mahatma. We are listening the Mahatma. We are following the Mahatma. Tonight is a night I dreamt with you, and I got nothing left to lose. Dancing around, I haven't found a